Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well. Hope you had a wonderful Shabbat. We continue with our learning. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Avram ben Moshe Aaron Sher, Avram Asher ben Zelek Copeland, Chaim ben Nachman Sharp, Zalman ben Fishel Baina, Yosef ben Chaim Joseph, Esther bas Binyamin Jacobi, Eta bas Malach HaKohen Kerber, Moshe ben Shlomo Gilby, Leah bas Feivel, Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi David Aryeh, Tzvi bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Zipporah Fegel bas Ruben Baruch, Shana ben Eleli ben bas Feivel, from Shoshana bas Yaakov Shmuel, Caleb ben bas Henoch, Yirmiyahu Chio ben Moshe Eliezer, Sarah Malka bas Ben Yomin, Shlomo Yechiel, Yirmiyahu Shmuel ben Shlomo. Okay, so good morning, everyone. We are going to continue and pick up where we left off. And that is that we were discussing, let me just say good morning to everyone who are joining us this morning on this freezing cold morning. To Mervyn, to Caroline, to Peter, to Michelle, to Estelle, and to Rachel. I wish you all, and Helen, good morning to each and every one of you. Of course, we'll have in mind when we're learning, those that are still unwell with COVID, members of our community and hospital, we wish them all a refuah shalema. So we were discussing about the concept of responsibility, right? And we're going to look at a fresh sources today. So let me just find it and then we'll make a start. And when we're all familiar with some of the basic sources, Hillel, for example, who said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, then when? So Jewish responsibility from time immemorial, as we will see, has always been an integral part of being Jewish. Ethics of the Fathers, Rabbi Tarfon says the day is short, the task is great, the laborers are lazy, the reward is so much. And the master is insistent. He used to say, it's not for you to complete your work, but neither are you free to stand aside from it. Those sources many of us have heard of. But let me now share with you a midrashic source relating to Abraham, and then we'll hopefully be able to explain this rather cryptic source. Okay, I hope everyone's well. It's a crisp morning. Go out for a walk, get some fresh air, do your exercise. What is it? 1 hour? I don't know, an hour a day we're allowed out? Yeah, okay. Said Rabbi Isaac, this may be compared to a man who was traveling from place to place. And he said, when he saw a building in flames, is it possible that the building lacks a manhig? In other words, a creator, a designer. The owner of the building peeped out and said, I am the owner of the building. Similarly, because Abraham, our forefather, said, is it conceivable that the world is without a designer? The Almighty, blessed be He, peeped out and said to him, I am the master of the world. Okay, so now let's have a look, see if we can find what Rabbi Sachs wrote about that. Okay, as follows. Abraham in the Midrash sees a palace. The world has order, and therefore it has a creator. The palace is in flames. The world is full of disorder or of evil, violence, and injustice. Now, no one builds a building and then deserts it. If there is a fire, there must be someone to put it out. The building must have an owner. If so, where is he? Where's the owner? That is the question, and that gives Abraham no peace. And I think it's worth pointing out that the sense of responsibility that we all have when we live in this world means that we don't live with this complete ignorance. They say ignorance is bliss. People walk around with their eye, blinkered, not wanting to ask these questions, not wanting to actually go on a search for meaning. I think, as Jews and seeing ourselves as having responsibility, therefore we are always willing to ask of ourselves and ask of the world uncomfortable or troubling questions. And that's precisely what we see from Abraham, and we are following in his ways. From time immemorial, says Rabbi Sachs, to the present, There have always been two ways of seeing the world. The first says there is no God. There are contending forces, chance and necessity. The chance that produces variation, and the necessity that gives the strong victory over the weak. From this perspective, the evolution of the universe is inexorable and blind. There is no justice, there's no judge, and therefore there is no question. We can know how, but we can never know why, for there is no why. There is no palace, there are only flames, right? And I think in the society in which we live, that's pretty much where many people, perhaps even the majority, turn to. You know, that's their approach. Don't have any questions. I don't have any dilemmas, because there isn't a God. There's no meaning. There's no purpose to anything. It's just completely random. The second view insists that there is God. All that is exists because he made it. All that happens transpires because he willed it. Therefore, all injustice is an illusion. Perhaps the world itself is an illusion. When the innocent suffer, it is to teach them to find faith through suffering, obedience through chastisement, serenity through acceptance, the soul's strength through the body's torments. Evil is the cloak that masks the good. There is a question, but there is always an answer. For if we could understand God, we would know that the world is as it is, because it would be less good were it otherwise. There is a palace, therefore there are no flames. We'll explain all this in a minute. The faith of Abraham begins in the refusal to accept either answer, for both contain a truth, and between them there is a contradiction. The first accepts the reality of evil, the second the reality of God. The first says that if evil exists, God does not exist, right? How can you have a God who is omniscient, who's beneficent, and all of a sudden why would he create evil? Evil cannot exist if it is a God of goodness. The second says that if God exists, evil does not exist. But supposing, asked Rabbi Sachs, that both exist, supposing there are both the palace and the flames, Judaism begins not in wonder that the world is, but in protest that the world is not as it ought to be. It is in that cry, that sacred discontent, that Abraham's journey begins. The easy answer would be to deny the reality of either God or evil. Then the contradiction would disappear and we would live at peace with the world. But to be a Jew is to have the courage to refuse easy answers and to reject either consolation or despair. God exists, therefore their life has purpose. Evil exists, therefore we have not yet achieved the purpose. Until then, we must travel just as Abraham did and Sarah did to begin the task of shaping a different kind of world. What haunts us about the Midrash is not just Abraham's question, but God's reply. He gives an answer that is no answer. He says, in effect, I'm here, without explaining the flames. He does not attempt to put out the fire. It is as if he said he were calling for help. God made the building. Man set it on fire, and only man could put out the flames. Abraham asked God, where are you? God replies, I'm here. Where are you? Man asked God, why did you abandon the world? God asked man, why did you abandon me? Right? So it begins a dialogue between earth and heaven and has no counterpart in any other faith, and which has not ceased for 4,000 years. In these questions, which only the other can answer, God and man find one another. Perhaps only together can they extinguish the flames. God gives his word to man, and man gives his word to God. God teaches, man acts, and together they begin the task of tikkun olam, repairing or mending the world. They become, in the rabbinic phrase, partners in the work of creation. So much packed in there. And we're going to make a start, okay? So the basic argument that Abraham discovered God is what we call intelligent design. If there is a design, there must be a designer, right? If there is creation, there must be a creator. And basically, Abraham asked all these questions. He said, well, who created this? Well, it was created by the wind. And who created the wind? And then you go further and further back, and you arrive at the conclusion with, that there's one of two possibilities. Either that, by some fluke, some ridiculous remote possibility, everything just happens to be in its right place because there was a big bang and things just happened by themselves. Or you believe the opposite, that everything, if there's an order in the world, if there's a design, if everything is in the right place with all the complexities in even one cell, then you say, well, then somebody must have made it. It can't just be that it happens. There are many articles about this. One analogy that one of the great scientists gives is the equivalent of, if you imagine, I think it's what was it called, a tornado or a jump jet Harrier, one of them, and you go into an airplane hangar, and you see in that airplane hangar the jump jet or the tornado, whatever you want, and you say to the pilot, how did that happen? Who made this beautiful plane? And he'll say to you, well, actually, there was a tornado that tore through this particular area 5 years ago, and there was loads of metal all around, and basically just, we came back in after the tornado, and this plane was sitting there, and this tornado had just lifted all these pieces. They happened to fall in the right place, and now they've created this tornado. So it happened by itself. It was just a wind, and it was just fluke that it happened exactly the way it needed to create this super jump jet. So that's one possibility, says the scientist. Now, we cannot deny that is a remote possibility, but the other possibility is that there was a creator, a designer. And the fact is that you have to ask yourself, at the end of the day, there's always going to be a leap of faith. Which one makes more sense to us? If I was to take you into, show you a Monet, a Picasso, or whatever you want, and you saw this beautiful masterpiece on the wall, or Mona Lisa, okay, and you come in and you stand in front of it, she's still not smiling, and you say to the curator, you say to him, can you explain to me, how did he do this? And instead of saying, well, it took him 5 years and he worked and he was one of the best artists, Da Vinci, of all time, he says, well, actually, we had these pots of paint, and there was this canvas on the floor. And one day, there was a wind, or a gust of wind, or there was somebody knocked the pots, and all of a sudden they all knocked onto each other and they all fell on the page, and they all created this beautiful masterpiece. Now, is that possible in the world of happenstance and chance, a godless existence? It's possible. How likely is it? How likely is it that we would say that happened not just on one occasion, but time and time again with every one of the creations in this world? So when Abraham, through a process of reflection on the world, realized that there must be a creator, and therefore he realized that the world isn't the way it should be, he recognized that he, being in this world, or humans being in this world, must be here for some purpose. It can't just be that we're here with no function, just to eat up the ozone layer, right? And therefore, he recognized that there must be some relationship between the creator and the creations. And therefore, the question is, what are the roles? And then God revealed himself. And therefore, he recognized and he accepted Abraham. And of course, that's part of the acceptance of our nation, a covenant with God, that we become partners in God's work. We accept responsibility, right? And therefore, we are willing to take on a shared responsibility in the imperfections in the world, intentional imperfections, right? Which there was work left over for us to do, especially after the sin of Adam and Eve. But a lot of the imperfections that we see in this world, a lot of the injustices, the question is, who's responsible for them? Who created them? Who created, God created a beautiful world. And the world that we see today, with so many problems, and I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about way before COVID, so many societal problems with you know, I'm just reading some academic works about the issues that children are struggling with and suffer with. The question is, what, you know, where did it all go wrong? Where did it start from? And where does it stop? And who's going to put out those flames of God's beautiful palace? So that's basically the lesson that we are learning. Okay. So the idea is that we don't take either approach, right? We saw there were two approaches, and Rabbi Sachs believes that we take a more challenging position, that there is both a palace and there are flames. The world has a creator and a design, but there also exists chaos and evil. And our job, as we say in the Aleinu prayer, is letaken olam, that we are meant to fix this world as best we can. And every little action that we do can either improve or it can deteriorate the state, the spiritual state of the world in which we live. We're going to stop there because there is so much more to say. Let's go on. Lovely to see everyone on this beautiful, beautiful, crisp day. Hope everyone's doing well, looking after yourselves. We're going to carry on with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishma Leah Bas 5 Rav Yaakov Zvi ben David Ari Tzvi Bas Mordechai Avram ben David Slavin Tzipor Figulus Reuben Baruch Shalom ben Eli ben Bas 5 from Shishtan Bas Yaakov Shmuel Caleb ben Bas Hanach Yom Yochia ben Moshe Eliezer Tzamaka Bas Binyamin Avram ben Moshe Avram Sheh Avram Asher ben Zelek Copeland Chaim ben Nachman Sharp Zalman ben Fishel Bainash Yosef ben Chaim Joseph Esther Bas Binyamin Yaakovi Eta Bas Maalech HaKohen Kerber Moshe ben Shlomo Gilby, Shalchu li olamam began Eden tei menuchasam lachin balarachamim yasirein b'seisa kanafav yolamim v'yesov v'sachet nishmasam Adonai nachlasam v'yanuchu b'shlam shkavam v'nomar Amen. Long life wishes to all. Refuah Shlema prayer for all those that are unwell. Misha Be'er Chavasein Robbins Chav Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarach Rav Pesach Cholim Bavu Sheba Shanu Mispalim Bavu Rambis Chazakadosh Baruch Hu Yimele Rachim Eleihem Lachem Alefosam Vishlach Lem Fushlim Nushmaim Lachol Vem Besoshach Yisrael Refuah Sanefesh Vusagov Hashabas Makariv and Amar Amen. As we learned this concept of responsibility, the last of Rabbi Sachs's 10 paths to God, we are going to discover a lot about ourselves in the sessions that we do, and hopefully through the questions that we will ask ourselves. And I think that one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is, what is our capabilities? How much can we shoulder? How much responsibility can we have? The truth is, we don't know what we are capable of until often we find ourselves in certain situations. I think Anthony Cohen's on here. I remember the film that you showed, and it was absolutely inspiring and humbling when you saw these Israeli surgeons and Israeli teams that have gone across the world and are healing so many others. So and they've changed the face of the lives of countless people in Africa. And I think it's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Everyone, can shoulder different levels of responsibility. Sometimes we don't know until we try. And sometimes when somebody starts to talk to us and share with us and offload their burden, their struggles, we don't want to hear it. We put up the defense barrier. Yeah. We don't want to hear it. And a great person, a person that has broad shoulders, is somebody that can stand shoulder to shoulder when somebody needs their support. It's not necessarily what we do. It's being empathetic. It's being there to support other people and their times of need. The emotional support that we can give people is incredible. And it just takes us being active listeners and having the willingness to give and share a bit of ourselves with others, but it lifts people's spirits and it can be a vital support. And in my opinion, it is life-saving and life-changing. So think about that. Have a great day. Enjoy your exercise, walk, keep safe, keep well. And look, sadly, of course, we'll be having the online shiva tonight for Jeffrey Grossman, Zechrono Livracha. That's at 6:30 on Zoom. And it will be on the YouTube channel as well. We'll be joined by Reverend Plasko, Reverend Robbins, other past members of Woodside Park, and everyone's welcome on that. And of course, tomorrow night, on a happier note, we look forward to welcoming from Los Angeles the head of the founder of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Rabbi Melvin Haya, an incredible man with an incredible story. The Simon Wiesenthal Center, I can't tell you what an honor and privilege it is that we've got him. Please join us tomorrow night. It's well advertised. See you then. Take care, everyone.